In a quiet village nestled between rolling hills, there lived a young woman named Laura whose beauty was legendary. Her gentle nature and musical laughter made her beloved throughout the land, though not by all. While many admired her, three girls, Mira, Casey, and Bella, watched with jealous eyes. "Look at her," Mira would hiss as Laura passed. "Everyone bows as if she's royalty." "She acts so humble," Casey sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. "But everyone loves her anyway," Bella added bitterly. Laura remained unaware of their envy. She lived with her parents, Martin and Deborah, in a small, weathered hut. The walls were cracked, the furniture worn smooth by years of use, but love filled every corner. Though poverty was their constant companion and meals were often scarce, laughter still echoed through their humble home. Laura's heart belonged to Victor, a handsome young man whose friendship with her was well known throughout the village. Their bond was deep and genuine, built on years of companionship and understanding. While she had three loyal friends, Selina, Annabelle, and Purity, who stood by her through everything, it was Victor who held her heart. The village itself was a tapestry of simple lives and complex relationships. Market days brought everyone together, where gossip flowed as freely as the wine. Laura would help her mother at their small store, her kindness evident in every interaction. Children gathered around her, drawn by her warm smile and gentle stories. Yet beneath this peaceful surface, darkness was approaching. Forces of greed and ambition would soon shatter Laura's innocent world, setting in motion events that would test her strength, her faith, and her very will to survive. Victor had made his decision. After years of friendship and growing love, he knew Laura was the woman he wanted to spend his life with. His heart pounded as he approached the humble dwelling of Martin and Deborah, rehearsing his words carefully. This was the moment that would determine his future. He knocked firmly on the weathered door, his palms sweating despite the cool morning air. Martin answered, his expression neutral but curious. "Good day, sir," Victor began, his voice steady despite his nervousness. "My name is Victor, and I have come with honorable intentions. I wish to marry your daughter, Laura." Martin's face transformed instantly. His eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched, and a sneer twisted his features. The change was so sudden and vicious that Victor took an involuntary step backward. "Victor, or whatever you call yourself," Martin spat, his voice dripping with contempt, "I will never give my daughter to you. Can't you see how beautiful she is? She is made for a rich man, not some poor village boy with empty pockets and hollow promises." The words struck Victor like physical blows. He tried to speak, to explain his worth beyond monetary value, but Martin raised his hand sharply. "Stand up and leave my compound. Now. You insult us with your presence." Victor rose slowly, his face burning with humiliation and disappointment. As he turned to leave, he caught sight of Laura standing in the doorway of the inner room, her hand covering her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. The moment Victor disappeared from sight, Laura rushed to her father. "How could you?" she cried, her voice breaking. "He loves me, and I love him. How could you do this to me?" Martin's expression remained hard as stone. "My daughter, love does not put food on the table. Love doesn't repair these cracked walls or buy new clothes. You deserve more than a life of continued poverty." "I deserve happiness," Laura sobbed. "You learned that happiness is a luxury we cannot afford," Martin replied coldly, turning away from her tears. That night, Deborah found her daughter curled on her bed, body shaking with silent sobs. She sat beside Laura, stroking her hair as she had when Laura was a child. "My sweet girl," Deborah whispered, her own heart breaking. "Your father thinks he knows what's best." "He knows nothing," Laura choked out between tears. "He's destroyed everything." Deborah held her daughter tighter, knowing that war storms were gathering on the horizon, storms that would make this heartbreak seem like a gentle rain. Several weeks passed, though Laura's heart remained heavy with grief. She moved through her days mechanically, her laughter silenced, her eyes dim. Then one afternoon, the sound of horses' hooves echoed through their small compound, announcing the arrival of someone important. A wealthy man dismounted from an ornate carriage, his presence commanding immediate attention. Nicholas was his name, an old but powerful man from a distant kingdom. His hair was silver gray, his eyes cold as winter frost, and his robe glittered with golden threads that caught the sunlight. Everything about him spoke of wealth and authority, but there was something unsettling in his gaze. "Are you Laura's father?" he asked, his voice deep and resonant with command. Martin straightened, both intimidated and intrigued. "Yes, I am. I have heard tales of your daughter, Laura," Nicholas continued, his eyes scanning the humble dwelling with barely concealed disdain. "They say her beauty surpasses that of princesses. I have traveled far to see if these tales hold truth. I have come to ask for her hand in marriage." Martin froze, his eyes widening. The word marriage hung in the air like a golden promise. His mind immediately raced to the possibilities: wealth, comfort, an end to their suffering. "Marriage, to my daughter," he stammered. Nicholas smiled, though the expression never reached his cold eyes. "If you agree, you shall never know hunger again. You will have gold, fine clothes, a proper house. All the treasures you've been denied will be yours." As if to emphasize his point, Nicholas gestured to his servant, who brought forward an ornate box. When opened, it revealed more gold coins than Martin had seen in his entire life. The precious metal gleamed in the afternoon sun, each coin representing comfort, security, and status. Martin's eyes burned with desire as he stared at the fortune before him. His hands trembled with the urge to touch it, to claim it. "Give me 2 days," he said quickly, his voice thick with barely contained greed. "I must discuss this matter with my wife. Such an important decision requires consideration." Nicholas nodded slowly, his smile widening slightly. 2 days then. But do not keep me waiting long. I am not a patient man, and opportunities like this do not come twice." As the wealthy stranger departed, Martin clutched the edge of the box, his reflection visible in the gleaming gold. In that polished surface, he saw not his daughter's future, but his own salvation from poverty. The choice, he had already decided, was clear. That night, Martin could barely contain his excitement as he told Deborah everything. They sat in their dimly lit home, the shadows dancing on the cracked walls as a single candle flickered between them. "A wealthy man named Nicholas has asked for Laura's hand," Martin announced, his voice trembling with barely suppressed enthusiasm. Deborah's face went pale. "What? Who is this man?" "He is powerful, from a distant kingdom. He has riches beyond imagination." Martin's eyes gleamed as he described the box of gold. "But Laura loves Victor," Deborah protested weakly. Martin waved his hand dismissively. "Victor is a poor village boy with nothing to offer. This man can give her everything, and us too. We'll never starve again, Deborah. We can rebuild our home, buy new clothes, hold our heads high in the village." "How old is this man?" Deborah asked, a tremor in her voice. Martin hesitated. "He is older. But age brings wisdom and stability." "Old enough to be her grandfather," Deborah whispered, horror creeping into her voice. "My husband, we cannot do this. It's not right." "Not right." Martin's voice rose. "What's not right is watching our daughter waste her beauty on poverty. What's not right is going to bed hungry, wearing rags, living in this crumbling hut while she could live in a palace." Deborah pressed her hands to her face, torn between mother's love and desperate hope. "But Martin," I saw his eyes. They were cold, like death itself. "What if he hurts her?" "He won't hurt her," Martin insisted, though his tone suggested he was convincing himself as much as her. "Rich men value their possessions. He'll treat her well. She's our daughter, not a possession." The argument continued late into the night. But as Deborah's protest grew weaker, she found herself glancing at their empty cupboards, their threadbare clothes, the leaking roof. Perhaps, she thought desperately, this was a blessing in disguise. Perhaps he would treat Laura kindly. Perhaps their suffering would finally end. By dawn, exhausted and defeated, Deborah had agreed. They would tell Laura together. When Laura returned home the following day, she immediately sensed something was wrong. Her mother's eyes were red and swollen, her father wore a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Laura, sit down," Martin said gently, gesturing to their worn bench. We need to speak with you about something important. Laura sat slowly, her heart already sinking with dread. A great man named Nicholas has asked for your hand in marriage, Martin began, his tone carefully measured. Laura blinked, certain she had misheard. My hand in marriage? What are you talking about? He is very wealthy, very powerful, her father continued. Though he is older. How much older? Laura interrupted sharply. The silence that followed was answer enough. He is older, yes, Deborah said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. But Laura, he has money. He can give you everything we never could. Laura stared at her parents in disbelief. So you both want to sell me to an old man? Is that what this is about? Laura. Martin snapped. Do not speak that way. We are thinking of your future. My future. Laura's voice rose, trembling with anger and hurt. Or your comfort. You would trade your daughter for gold, for a house, for food. Enough. Martin roared, slamming his hand on the table. You will marry him, and that is final. If you refuse, I will disown you and send you out of my house. You will be dead to me. The threat hung in the air like a blade. Laura felt her world crumbling. I will never marry him, she said, her voice breaking. I would rather drown in the Black Sea than live as his wife. Then you are no longer my daughter, Martin thundered. You bring shame to this family. Get out. Laura ran from the house, her vision blurred with tears. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs trembled, finally collapsing beneath a large oak tree at the village edge. There, she wept until she had no tears left. Later, she sought out her three true friends, Selina, Annabel, and Purity. They found her by the river, her eyes swollen and red. What's wrong? Selina asked, immediately kneeling beside her. Through broken sobs, Laura told them everything. Her father's greed, the old man named Nicholas, the impossible choice she faced. That's cruel, Annabel said, her hands clenched into fists. You must run away, Laura. Leave this village tonight. I can't, Laura whispered. My mother would die of grief. She's weak, and the shock would kill her. Purity frowned deeply. Then what will you do? You can't marry that old man. I don't know, Laura admitted, her voice hollow. I feel trapped. Like I'm drowning on dry land. Selina took her hand firmly. Whatever happens, you're not alone. We'll stand with you. Laura smiled weakly, but she knew that friendship, however genuine, couldn't save her from this fate. Her friends could offer comfort but not solutions. As evening fell, Laura returned home quietly, hoping her father's anger had cooled. Instead, she found her mother waiting in her small room, eyes swollen from crying. Laura, Deborah said softly, reaching for her daughter's hands. Please, my child. Just do this for us. We've suffered so long. Mother, don't ask me this, Laura whispered, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I can't bear to see your father disown you. He means it, Laura. He'll throw you out with nothing. Where will you go? How will you survive? The manipulation was subtle but effective. Deborah wasn't appealing to Laura's dreams or happiness, she was appealing to her fear, her sense of duty, her love for her mother. Laura felt the walls closing in. Homeless, penniless, disowned, the alternative seemed worse than the prison of marriage to Nicholas. With a voice barely above a whisper, Laura finally spoke the word that sealed her fate, I will do it. I will marry Nicholas. Her mother broke down immediately, pulling Laura into a tight embrace. Thank you, my child. Thank you. One day you'll understand. One day you'll see this was for the best. But Laura felt nothing except emptiness. The next morning, she informed her father of her decision. You've made the right choice, my daughter, Martin said, his smile wide and satisfied. There was no acknowledgement of her pain, no recognition of her sacrifice, only relief that his path to wealth remained clear. Laura looked away, unable to meet his eyes. If you say so, father. 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparations. The village buzzed with excitement about the grand wedding. Seamstresses created an elaborate dress, musicians practiced festive songs, and decorations were hung throughout the village square. To everyone else, it was a celebration. To Laura, it was a funeral, the death of her dreams, her freedom, her very self. On the wedding day, the village gathered in colorful clothes and cheerful spirits. Laura stood in her white dress, feeling like a ghost in her own body. Nicholas took her trembling hand before the crowd, and everyone cheered. The celebration was loud and joyous, with music and dancing and abundant food. But Laura's heart was dying inside her chest. Her eyes scanned the crowd and found Victor standing behind a large tree, partially hidden. The eyes met for one brief, devastating moment. Tears streamed down his face, and she could see his heart breaking in real time. He had come to witness her wedding, unable to stay away despite the pain. When Laura left her childhood home, her mother wept openly, clinging to her. "Write to us. Visit when you can. Be happy, my daughter." Her father stood apart, counting the gold Nicholas had given him, his smile broad and content. He didn't even look up as his daughter departed. As Nicholas's ornate horse carriage carried her away from everything she knew, Laura whispered softly to herself, "Goodbye, mother. Goodbye, Victor. Goodbye, freedom." The journey to Nicholas's kingdom was long and oppressively silent. Laura sat rigidly beside the old man, her hands folded in her lap, her gaze fixed on nothing. He kept stealing glances at her, his expression unreadable but unsettling. "You will like my home," Nicholas finally said, breaking the heavy silence. "It is large, comfortable, and filled with everything you could ever want." Laura forced the faintest of smiles. "As long as I am allowed peace, I will be fine." He chuckled, a low, disturbing sound that made her skin crawl. "Peace, my dear. Peace is for those who have no responsibilities. A wife of mine will not live idly." She looked at him carefully, searching his face. "And what kind of responsibilities?" He didn't answer. He only smiled, and that smile made her heart grow cold with dread. When they finally arrived at Nicholas's estate, Laura gasped softly despite her fear. The mansion was massive, with towers reaching toward the sky and walls of gleaming stone. Guards stood at attention, and servants moved like shadows through the corridors. It should have been beautiful, but something about the place felt wrong, cold and lifeless despite its grandeur. As they walked through the grand entrance hall, Laura noticed other young women moving silently through the corridors. They were all beautiful, dressed in fine clothes, but their eyes were dull and empty, as if their souls had been extinguished. None of them looked at her directly, they kept their gazes downcast, their movements mechanical. "Are they your daughters?" Laura asked quietly, though something told her she already knew the answer. Nicholas smiled that cold smile again. "They are my wives." Laura's chest tightened, making it hard to breathe. "Your wives?" "All of them." "Yes. I have taken many wives over the years. You are not the first, and you will not be the last." He said it so casually, as if discussing the weather rather than a house full of imprisoned women. He gestured to a nearby guard. "Show her to her chamber. She needs rest. Tomorrow she will begin her duties." "Duties?" Laura asked, confusion mixing with growing dread. "What duties?" But Nicholas had already turned away, dismissing her question with a wave of his hand. The guard led her through a long, dimly lit hallway. The walls were decorated with expensive tapestries and paintings, but they felt more like decorations in a tomb than a home. When they reached her chamber and the guard opened the door, Laura stepped inside. The room was beautiful, luxurious even. A large bed with silk sheets, fine furniture, ornate decorations. But when she had the door locked behind her, the truth became clear: this beautiful room was a prison cell, just with better furnishings. Laura sat on the edge of the bed, her hands clasped tightly together. "What have I done?" she whispered to the empty room. "Mother, father, what have you done to me?" That night, sleep refused to come. In the darkness, she heard sounds that made her blood run cold, crying, soft and broken, echoing faintly through the walls. The voices of other girls, other wives, They are sour seeping through the very stones of this terrible place. Laura pulled the luxurious blankets around herself, but they provided no comfort. She was warm, well-fed, and dressed in fine clothes, yet she had never felt more cold, more hungry, more stripped of everything that mattered. Morning came with a heavy knock on the door. A servant entered silently and handed her an elaborate robe. "Mistress," the servant said in a flat, emotionless voice, "Lord Nicholas requests your presence in the grand hall." Laura followed the servant down to the grand hall, her heart pounding with apprehension. When she entered, she found Nicholas waiting with 3 other wealthy men. They were all old, all powerful looking, and they all stared at her as if she were a piece of treasure on display. Nicholas smiled at her approach. "Gentlemen, this is Laura, my newest acquisition." The word acquisition struck her like a physical blow. She wasn't his wife, she was his property. "You will entertain our guests tonight," Nicholas said calmly, as if announcing dinner plans. Laura's blood ran cold. "I don't understand," she whispered, though deep down, she was beginning to understand all too well. Nicholas raised an eyebrow, his expression hardening. "Do not embarrass me, Laura." One of the men laughed, a cruel sound. "She is new, Nicholas. Give her time to understand her purpose." But Nicholas's tone turned icy. "She will learn quickly, or she will learn the hard way." That night was the worst of Laura's life. She was forced to entertain Nicholas's 3 guests, her body present but her mind desperately trying to escape to somewhere, anywhere else. She trembled at first, tears streaming silently down her face, but slowly, numbness began to replace the initial horror. When it was finally over and the men had left satisfied, Nicholas leaned close to her ear. His breath was hot against her skin as he whispered, "You see now. You were made to please my guests. This is your purpose. Do not resist it." Tears welled in Laura's eyes, but she refused to let them fall in front of him. "I am not your slave," she said, her voice barely audible but filled with defiance. He laughed quietly, a sound devoid of warmth or humanity. "You are my wife? That is the same thing. All my wives serve the same purpose here." The days that followed blurred together in a nightmare of repetition. Laura discovered the full horror of her situation. Nicholas used his wives to charm and entertain powerful men, trading their beauty and bodies for wealth, influence, and favors. It was a systematic operation, cold and calculated. She learned from whispered conversations with other wives that any woman who refused to obey simply disappeared. No one knew exactly what happened to them, but everyone knew they never returned. Laura tried to stay silent, obeying only enough to survive. But each night, alone in her locked chamber, she wept into her silk pillows. "I hate you, Father," she whispered into the darkness. "You sold me to a monster. You destroyed me for gold." Months crawled by, each day heavier than the last. Nicholas grew harsher, more demanding. He would summon her at any hour, commanding her to entertain different guests, to smile, to pretend, to perform. The beautiful clothes and jewelry felt like chains. The abundant food tasted like ash in her mouth. Once, when Laura refused a particularly cruel request, Nicholas gripped her arm so tightly that his nails drew blood. She cried out in pain, but he only squeezed harder. "You will obey me," he hissed, his face inches from hers, "or I will end your life the way I ended the lives of my other wives who dared to refuse." 7 months had passed since Laura's wedding day, though to her it felt like 7 lifetimes. Back in the village, her parents sat in their dim home, the gold Nicholas had given them long since spent. The brief comfort it had provided was now just a bitter memory. Deborah stared at the walls, her eyes hollow with worry and guilt. "Martin," she said softly, her voice trembling, "why hasn't he sent for us? Why hasn't Laura visited? It's been so long." Martin frowned, trying to maintain his conviction. He is a rich man, probably busy. Such men forget small matters easily. Forget. Deborah's voice cracked. You sold our daughter to him, and now she's gone. Completely gone. And you say he forgot us. How can a man forget his wife's family? Martin slammed his hand on the table. Enough, woman. I did what was right for us. You did what was right for yourself. Deborah cried, years of suppressed guilt and anger finally erupting. You destroyed our daughter's life for gold that we've already spent. We have nothing now, not wealth, not our daughter, nothing. Unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, they decided to visit Nicholas's kingdom. When they arrived at the massive mansion, guards immediately blocked their path. We are Nicholas's in-laws, Martin announced indignantly. We demand to see our daughter. One guard sneered. You're not the only ones who claim that. What do you mean? Deborah asked, her voice rising in panic. Leave, the guard ordered flatly. No in-laws are allowed to enter this compound. Lord Nicholas's orders. They were turned away like beggars. The journey home was silent, both of them crushed by the implications of what they'd learned. Deborah wept for days afterward. Martin sat in guilty silence, the weight of his decision finally settling on his shoulders like a millstone. Meanwhile, news of Laura's disappearance had spread through the village. People whispered about the girl who had married a wealthy stranger and then vanished completely, as if she'd never existed. One morning, Victor overheard villagers discussing Laura's fate. His heart, which had been slowly healing, tore open again. That evening, he approached Martin and Deborah's home, finding them sitting outside, looking broken and aged. It's me, Victor, he said quietly. The man you refused to let marry your daughter. Martin couldn't meet his eyes, but Deborah looked up with desperate hope. I heard the villagers talking, Victor continued. Laura hasn't visited or sent word since she married Nicholas. Deborah nodded quickly, tears already forming. We went to his mansion. They wouldn't let us in. They said we weren't the only in-laws trying to visit. Victor's expression darkened with understanding. Then she is in grave danger. I've heard stories about Nicholas and what he does to his wives. Terrible stories. Please, Deborah begged, grabbing his hand. Help us. Bring her home. We'll do anything. We were wrong, so terribly wrong. Victor looked at Martin, who finally met his gaze. The older man's face was etched with shame and regret. I will try, Victor said firmly. But if Nicholas discovers what I'm doing, he will kill all of us. Still, I will bring her back or die trying. I made a promise to myself long ago that I would protect Laura. I failed once, I won't fail again. The next morning, Victor disguised himself carefully. He dressed in fine robes borrowed from a wealthy merchant friend and carried a heavy chest, not filled with real gold, but with ordinary stones beneath a top layer of genuine coins. He looked every bit the prosperous trader as he approached Nicholas's mansion. The guards, recognizing wealth when they saw it, allowed him entry without question. Nicholas himself greeted Victor warmly in the grand hall, his eyes gleaming with the prospect of profit. Or, a new customer. Nicholas said, his voice smooth as oil. Welcome to my home. What do you seek, my friend? Victor bowed slightly, playing his role perfectly. I seek beautiful company. They say no one in any kingdom can match the beauty and charm of your wives. Nicholas grinned with pride. Then you have come to the right place. I have the finest collection in all the lands. He clapped his hands, and several women were brought forward. Among them was Laura. When she appeared, Victor's heart nearly stopped. The sorrow in her eyes, the way she held herself, everything about her spoke of suffering endured and spirit nearly broken. But Laura's eyes widened with recognition when she saw Victor, though she said nothing. Her training in survival had taught her to hide her reactions. This one, Nicholas said proudly, gesturing to Laura, is my newest jewel. Her name is Laura. She is exquisite, is she not? Victor forced himself to smile calmly. She is beautiful indeed. I would like time with her. Nicholas nodded, satisfied. Of course. My wives exist to please my valued guests. When Nicholas left them alone in a private chamber, Victor moved quickly to the window, checking to ensure no one was listening. Then he turned to Laura and whispered urgently, Laura, listen carefully. I came here to save you. I know it wasn't your decision to marry this monster. I forgive you for everything. Laura froze, then tears instantly spilled from her eyes. You, forgive me. Her voice broke on the words. Yes, I do, Victor said softly, taking her trembling hands. None of this was your fault. Your father sold you, and Nicholas imprisoned you. But I'm here now, and I'm going to get you out. Laura's hands shook violently. You must be careful. If he finds out, he'll kill you. He's murdered other wives who tried to escape. He'll murder you too. I know the risks, Victor said firmly. But I can't leave you here. Now listen, pretend nothing happened today. Act as you always do. I'll return tomorrow with a plan to get you out. Can you be strong for one more day? Laura nodded quickly, wiping her tears. Please don't let him hurt you. I couldn't bear it if you died because of me. I won't die, Victor promised. And neither will you. Not in this place. That night, alone in her chamber, Laura prayed for the first time in months. Oh God, please have mercy upon me. Let tomorrow bring me hope. Let Victor succeed. I cannot endure much more. The next day arrived with agonizing slowness. Every minute felt like an hour as Laura waited, terror and hope warring within her. Would Victor return? Would Nicholas discover the deception? Would this be her last day alive? Then, in the late afternoon, Victor returned. He wore the same fine robes and carried an even larger chest. Nicholas greeted him with enthusiasm. My Lord Nicholas, Victor said with a respectful bow, I have returned for business. I enjoyed my time with Laura so much that I wished to make a proposal. Nicholas leaned back in his ornate chair, intrigued. What kind of proposal? I wish to take Laura to my own estate as my personal entertainer, Victor explained smoothly. She has captured my interest completely. I will pay 10 times what you originally received for her. Nicholas laughed, but there was calculation in his eyes. You speak as if beauty can be owned and traded. Victor smiled. In business, everything has a price, does it not? The old man studied him carefully. 10 times, you say? 10 times, Victor confirmed, dropping the heavy chest on the floor. Gold coins, real ones on top, fake ones beneath, spilled slightly from the open lid, glinting in the light. Greed won over suspicion. Nicholas's eyes gleamed as he stared at the fortune before him. Very well. She is yours for a time. But bring her back when I call for her. Of course, my lord, Victor agreed with another bow. Guards brought Laura to the hall. When Victor offered his hand, her fingers trembled as they touched his. As they walked out of the dark palace, Victor whispered so softly only she could hear, stay close. Don't look back. We are almost free. Laura nodded, barely daring to breathe. For the first time in 7 months, she could feel fresh air on her face without the weight of chains, visible or invisible, holding her down. As they reached the outskirts of Nicholas's kingdom, Laura finally whispered, he will come after us. When he discovers the gold is fake, he'll hunt us down. Then we'll be ready, Victor replied firmly. But first, we must get you to your parents. They need to know you're alive. When they arrived at Martin and Deborah's home, Deborah burst into tears the moment she saw her daughter. My child, she cried, pulling Laura into her arms. I thought I'd never see you again. Laura clung to her mother, weeping. I missed you so much, mother. Martin stood in the background, unable to speak, his face etched with shame. Laura slowly turned toward him, her expression hardening. You sold me, she said, her voice trembling with anger and pain. You sold me to that monster. Martin lowered his gaze. I thought I was helping us, Laura. I thought it would save you from poverty. Save me. Laura's voice rose. You sent me to live in a prison. You sent me to be used and abused. You knew nothing about saving me, you only knew about saving yourself from hunger. Laura, Deborah whispered, holding her back. Please, don't let anger consume you. But Laura's eyes remained hard as steel. I will never forgive him. Not in this life, not in the next. He destroyed me for gold. Victor stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. We don't have time for this. Nicholas will discover the deception soon. When he does, he'll come here looking for Laura. We must end him before he ends us. Martin looked up, confused. End him? How? Victor's expression darkened. With poison. He will come here pretending to search for his wife. When he does, Deborah, you must offer him wine. Mix this into it. He handed her a small bottle filled with clear liquid. One sip will end his life within minutes. Deborah's hands shook as she took the bottle. I've never killed anyone before. You won't be killing an innocent man, Victor said solemnly. You'll be freeing your daughter and countless other women he's imprisoned and abused. If we don't stop him, he'll take Laura back, and this time, he'll make sure she never escapes. That night, the family waited in tense silence. Victor took Laura to his own home, hiding her from Nicholas. The precaution proved wise. It didn't take long for Nicholas to discover the fake gold. Rage consumed him as he rushed to Laura's village in his horse carriage, his face twisted with fury. He burst through the door of Martin and Deborah's home without knocking. Where is she? He demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Deborah forced a trembling smile, her heart pounding so hard she feared he could hear it. Where is who? My in-law? Don't play games with me, woman. Where is Laura? You must be tired from your journey, Deborah said, her voice surprisingly steady. Let me get you some wine. Is she here or not? Nicholas demanded. No, my in-law, Martin interjected quickly. Is she missing? She's not missing, Nicholas said with forced calm, though his eyes blazed with suspicion. I simply want to know if she came here. Please, sit down, Deborah urged. You cannot leave without tasting our wine. It would be an insult to your visit. Nicholas hesitated, then sat with obvious impatience. Fine. Be quick about it. I must return home soon. Deborah's hands trembled as she poured the wine, carefully adding the poison Victor had given her. She could barely breathe as she handed him the glass. It's a rare vintage, she said, proud that her voice didn't shake. Nicholas smirked. I like rare things. He raised the glass and drank deeply. Moments passed. Then his smile faded. He touched his chest, confusion crossing his features. What is this? Deborah stepped back, her heart still racing. Your punishment, she whispered. Nicholas gasped, his body beginning to shake violently. You fools. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I do to you? Yes, Deborah said, her voice growing stronger. You're the monster who thought he could destroy my daughter. But she's free now, and you can never hurt her again. Nicholas tried to stand, to reach for her, but his legs wouldn't support him. He stumbled toward the door, determined to reach his courage and the antidote he kept there. But the poison worked quickly. He collapsed on the path outside, his body convulsing as the poison spread through his system. His skin turned pale, then gray. Finally, with one last gasping breath, he died. When Victor and Laura returned cautiously an hour later, they found Deborah and Martin standing over Nicholas's body. Laura stared down at the man who had imprisoned her, who had stolen 7 months of her life, who had tried to break her spirit. She closed her eyes, tears running down her face. It's over, she whispered. It's finally over. Victor took her hand gently. You're free now, Laura. Truly free. I thought I would never see the light again, Laura said, her voice breaking. Thank you for saving me. You're welcome, Victor replied softly. And I promise you, from now on, you will never face darkness like that again. Deborah fell to her knees, crying silently. The weight of what she'd done, the murder, even of a monster, pressed down on her. Martin stood apart, guilt consuming him more completely than any poison could. Victor wrapped his arm around Laura. Let's leave this place. Let's leave all of this behind. Together, they walked away from the house, from the body, from the ruins of Laura's past. Behind them, her parents stood in the wreckage of their choices, finally understanding the true cost of their greed. Laura's story reveals a haunting truth: your children are not commodities to be traded for comfort. When Martin sold his daughter for gold, he didn't just lose her, he lost his soul, his honor, and any claim to the title of a father. This tale screams a warning to every parent: poverty of character is far worse than poverty of pocket. Martin had love, family, and a beautiful daughter who would have brought him grandchildren and joy. Instead, he chose temporary gold over permanent treasures. But here's the redemption: true love never abandons. While a greedy father sold Laura, loyal Victor risked everything to save her. Real wealth isn't measured in coins, it's measured in courage, loyalty, and sacrifice. Remember, the decisions you make today in desperation can create prisons that last a lifetime. Never trade what's priceless for what's temporary. Never sacrifice your loved ones on the altar of greed. Your character is your true inheritance. Protect it fiercely. Don't miss our next powerful story. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell for more life-changing tales that will transform how you see the world. Your next lesson awaits. Backhand index pointing up.